My name is Julia, and on behalf of Students for Sensible Drug Policy here at Berkeley, I would like to welcome you to our first event of the semester. We're super excited to have you all here. For those of you who maybe this is your first time hearing about our club, I'll give you some information. So we are concerned with issues surrounding drug policy, the war on drugs, issues surrounding cannabis and Mdma. And our conversations really take any direction that our members want them to. And we're always welcoming new members, so if you're interested, feel free to check out our Facebook page, UC Berkeley SSTP, where we post event information as well as meeting times and other cool articles. So that being said, it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for tonight, Emmanuel Cefarios. Mr. Cefarios is the founder of harm reduction organization Dance Safe, and he is also the producer and writer of an upcoming documentary called Mdma the Movie. And my first encounter with Dance Safe was at a festival this summer called Lighting in a Bottle, where they set up a booth and they were giving away condoms, earplugs, drug information cards, and other things. And the earplugs that I got from that booth were the only reason that I was able to sleep the entire weekend. And so that made me wonder why Dance Safe is not at every festival, because I truly believe that the services they provide are super crucial. And so through this event, we hope to educate you on the stigma surrounding Mdma, effects on the brain, potential pros and cons of use, as well as possibly debunk some commonly held misconceptions. And finally, we will be having a Q&A afterwards, so hold your questions till the end. And thank you all for coming. I hope you learned something new tonight. And with that, we would like to give a warm welcome to Emmanuel.
Thank you, Julia. And SSDP, this is the first talk of this sort I've given in probably 15 years. So I'm really excited about it, and I'm hoping that it becomes like something that I do at other universities and SSDP chapters. I'll tell you what I plan to do tonight before I do it. I usually don't have any notes when I talk. I just sort of get up and ramble, but I sort of made the longest outline I've ever made. I was thinking, you tell me if you like it or not. I thought I'd go first with the history of Mdma, because it really is probably the only recreational drug, common one that we know, like, we really know the entire history of how this thing was discovered and invented and spread and everything else. Then I wanted to get right into harm reduction information, responsible use or safer use information, which I think is really crucial. I think universities should be doing this, and I commend SSDP for having me. You're setting an example for what the administration should be doing themselves. They do it with alcohol really well. They don't do it with party drugs at all, and they should. Everything from the adulterated market, hyperthermia, dosing and frequency concerns, drug combinations, contraindications, et cetera, that kind of stuff. Then a little bit on Mdma pharmacology, how it works in the brain. That's always very interesting, especially to a college crowd. We know a lot about it. Mdma is actually one of the most studied psychoactive drugs that we know of. Thousands of funded scientific studies using the drug, administering it to animals and humans. Neurotoxicity, is it real? What does it mean? Why should you be concerned? What could you do about it? Medical use or therapeutic use, a public policy discussion also. Prohibition creates more harm than good. Festival and nightlife harm reduction measures, very, very important today. The vast majority of fatalities happen in nightlife or festival settings for reasons I'll get into. Models for legal regulation is very important. I want to talk about that. How would we legalize and regulate a drug like Mdma, and why would we do that? And then where does Mdma fit into the broader drug policy reform movement? There are more compelling reasons to reform laws around the more dangerous drugs that we're seeing thousands of deaths rather than tens a year. But why Mdma? So I'll get into that. And then we'll have question and answer. And then I might bring one or two other people up to speak before Q&A just for like 5 minutes each also. Do you like that?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll start with the history. And I guess I can bring up, just while I'm talking about that, a slide around the history. This was the first article in a mainstream magazine about MDMA back in 1985 in Newsweek. But I'm going to go back even farther. MDMA was first, that is just, there we go. This was the first Newsweek article, which I read when I was 15 years old, and then I sought out MDMA. But in any case, you can ask me about my personal story if you want to hear it later. MDMA was first synthesized in 1912 by Merck Pharmaceuticals. Some people think that it was created as an appetite suppressant, but that's just a rumor. It was really an intermediary for the creation of a blood pressure medication that Merck was wanting to patent at the time called hydrosteinin. And back then, when you patented a substance, a new drug, medicine, you patented the steps of making it. And to prevent competitors from making it, they patented a slew of chemicals that were intermediaries for the creation of hydrosteinin, and MDMA was one of them. So they never tested it on a person or an animal, didn't know anything about it. It just got patented, and the patent ran out, 30 years later. Which is one of the reasons that today no pharmaceuticals are interested in developing it into a medicine, because they can't get a patent on it. Then there are rumors that it was used in the 1950s as part of the US Army's program researching truth serums, which could be a euphemism for torture drugs. But there's no hard evidence that they did that. We do know that they tested other psychoactive drugs during that program, like LSD, and the precursor to MDMA, MDA. But someone actually died, a subject who was given MDA, and so a lot of people think that they didn't follow on with MDMA at the time. So that's just a rumor. Then it appears on the street in the mid-70s. And we know this because there was an organization called PharmChem who would test street samples. And they actually tested MDMA, even before Sasha Shulgin, the psychedelic chemist, rediscovered it. So someone knew about it and had actually made it, or it was an accident, we don't know. But what we do know then is that Sasha gets a letter from someone in Germany asking him, Sasha Shulgin, everyone, who knows who Sasha Shulgin is? Okay. He is a psychedelic chemist who published 2 books, P-Call and T-Call, and invented hundreds of psychoactive drugs, many of which are used today. 2CB is one of them, probably his most famous one. He didn't invent MDMA, but he's largely considered the godfather of ecstasy because he rediscovered. And how that happened was, well, first, someone in Germany sent him a letter, right? Pre-internet, it's actually a physical letter, asking him, hey, how do you make the methylated version of MDA? And he never made it, but he knew how to make it because he was a chemist, so he writes him back. And then, a year later, there's a mysterious graduate student. All we can find out about her is that she was a woman, she's a grad student, probably here at Berkeley, because the Shulgins live in Lafayette, not far. And she says to Sasha, hey, you should try making the methylated version of MDA. And he said, oh, someone wrote me about that. And so he did. And Sasha's process, if people don't know, he would manufacture these drugs and test them on himself first in very, very small doses. And was very careful about it, so he survived. Some other people that were trying this too didn't survive. It's very dangerous, don't do that at home. But he kind of knew what a certain substance would do because of the base molecule, and so he, if he found an effect with one of these drugs, he would then bring in his research group, and they would all take it, and then they would write down, their qualitative comments about it. And this is all published the original qualitative comments from his research groups, the first people in the world who did all of these different drugs like 2CB, et cetera, in his books. And what he realized in taking MDMA for the first time in an appropriate when he got up to an appropriate dose is that this drug had incredible therapeutic potential. And he then gave it to his friend and colleague, Leo Zeff, who's kind of like the unsung hero of MDMA. Everyone knows about Sasha. Few people know about Leo Zeff. He's like the Johnny Appleseed of ecstasy or MDMA. He came out of retirement. He was an older gentleman. He was a psychotherapist, and he traveled around the world training therapists in how to use it. And this was in the late 70s, and the height of the drug war. Nancy Reagan, Just Say No was starting. The Nixon crackdown was, people were still alive. I mean, they are still alive today. I mean, we're still in the height of the drug war today. But the therapists realized that, well, this drug also produces some pleasure and therefore has abuse potential, and if it's starting to be used in public settings, then there would be a crackdown. And so they kept it under wraps. Between like 1976 and 1985, over 1 million doses of MDMA were used in homes, clinical settings by therapists for psychotherapy purposes, and they called it Atom. They even gave it a nickname so that other chemists wouldn't know what it was. But of course, the inevitable happened, and it started being manufactured and sold in nightlife settings, particularly in Texas, at the Stark Club, and there's a new documentary coming out now about the Stark Club. I got to see a pre-release of it. It's really great. It's all about how MDMA changed the whole culture of Dallas. And you had, gays and straights, and, George Bush went to the Stark Club. Who knows if he took MDMA, but it was this really cultural mecca of Dallas, and really transformed. And if you follow the history of MDMA, through to Ibiza, through to England, and the changes that happened culturally, there's this really profound changes in culture that took place because of the spread of MDMA, which I'm not really going to get into. So starts to be used in Texas. No deaths, nobody died, but yet the DEA wanted to crack down on it because it was, part of the drug war, new demon drug. And they emergency schedule at Schedule 1. The therapists then get together who had been using it and file a lawsuit, and they sue the DEA in the administrative court. And they brought in witnesses. The trial lasted a year, and the judge, Francis Young, actually ruled in favor of the therapists, whose argument was that this should be Schedule 3, not Schedule 1. Go ahead, ban it for recreational use if you want, but we've been using it for 10 years with great success. It has medical value that's supported by evidence, and they won. But because it was just an administrative law judge, didn't have power over the DEA. It's just like an advisory hearing. The DEA fought it. They appealed it, and eventually there was 2 or 3 appeals, and eventually they lost, and MDMA became a Schedule 1 drug, and then immediately, as could be expected, spread around the globe in recreational settings. The therapists community continued to use it, and even to this day, there is a large network of underground therapists that use MDMA for various forms of counseling. That's the history. They kept it underground really well, because this is the first mainstream article about it, and it came out in 1985, the year it was made illegal.